I go back to Charleston often to see family and stay active with my alma mater, the College of Charleston. My 4 years there changed my life, because for the first time, the answer to my every question was yes. And it made all the difference. Everything is possible. I've built a 40-year career with that permission slip. I was on campus recently. I felt like a fossil. And visited the house on the corner of George and St. Philip Street, where my beloved professor and mentor, the British painter Michael Tyzack, gave me my first job as a 17-year-old freshman. I stretched canvases and prepared pigments in his second-floor studio, pictured right over my shoulder. By shadowing him, I learned not only about painting, but a painter's life, with all of the triumphs, failures, and day-to-day stuff. I meet many painters who think that if only they had a bigger studio with north-facing light, or a palette of Old Holland pigments, or a New York dealer, then they would be successful. If they could paint full-time and not be bothered with life's daily aggravations, then they'd make great work. But all of the annoying stuff has no real effect if you aren't precious in your work. The phone call reminding us of a teeth cleaning, or the child asking if autofellatio is an Italian racing team, are necessary parts of life. And painting is as diverse and unpredictable as life itself. Michael gave me the same advice that Charles Bukowski gave aspiring writers, and which I will give to you. Quit now, you suck. If that simple declarative statement is enough to offend or discourage an artist, they should find something else to do. So the question to ask yourself isn't, am I good? But rather, will I continue? You must continue. I was at a backyard birthday party in San Francisco years ago, and an older gentleman introduced himself and said, "Bry, I like 2 things, fine dining and art." I smiled. "John, I like fine dining and art too." He said, "Yeah, Cheesecake Factory and Thomas Kinkade." That encounter taught me that not everybody values the same things. Laurence Olivier said of acting, "Some people will love your work and some will hate it, and they'll be right." There's room for all of us. I'm not arguing for aesthetic relativity, but I am saying that my standard of excellence might not align with yours, and that's okay. Duke Ellington said, "If it sounds good, it is good." The same applies to a visual experience. If it looks good, it is good. According to professor and philosopher Dennis Dutton, there are 2 kinds of authenticity. There is nominal authenticity, which refers to a work of art having been created by its purported creator, meaning not a forgery. For example, a Shaker chair, a Dairy Queen blizzard, or a Brinks truck. Then there is expressive authenticity, in which a work of art is a genuine expression of an individual or a culture's beliefs or morals. For example, a Gee's Bend quilt is authentic because it was made by the women in that small Alabama community. Both types of authenticity are valid. The art world wants you to pick a team: high or low culture, pristine or banal, Disney or David. But if something brings you joy and makes you lucid, isn't that authentic too? I can go from the Met to the Magic Kingdom in one beer burp. Both make me feel fully awake. Isn't that the purpose of art, to remind us that life is worth living? There's a reason the first 3 letters of the word artificial are art. When I stand before a painting, I'm not interested in the accuracy of appearance, but in the lie of artifice. Because that tells me that someone loved me enough to have made this thing for me to see. And if they've paid exquisite attention to detail, to intent and execution, It means that they had a high opinion of all of us. I think that's a beautiful way to live. I thank my lucky stars that I was born and raised in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in the late 1970s, where I had no exposure to the fine arts. The first artist I ever met was me. As the product of a beach resort, my first reality was kitsch, and I adore it. Spastic neon signs 3 stories tall for all-you-can-eat fried shrimp, the tilt-a-whirl, and new things made to appear old fascinate me. Placing style over substance suggests a desperate, hasty kind of love that I find both humorous and melancholic. I learned not to take myself too seriously. Kitsch embodies a respect for misplaced priorities that I find genuinely beautiful. You'll never hear me use words like corny or sentimental, and I don't like being around people who do. Say what you mean from your heart. I hate cynicism in art. I will fully commit to anything that delivers a complex and enduring experience, no matter if it was carved from ivory 5 centuries ago or mass-produced and encrusted with LED lights last week. Knowing one's origins, geographically and culturally, ensures authenticity. But lusting to be something you weren't born into is equally genuine, because you chose it. It didn't choose you. Painters live for contradictions. I don't mean, why did kamikazes wear helmets, or why do drive-through ATMs have Braille? But the most delicious contradiction of all. How can something superficial be serious? To quote Friedrich Nietzsche, "Oh, those Greeks, they knew how to live." What is required for that is to stop courageously at the surface, the fold, the skin, to adore appearance, to believe in forms, tones, words, in the whole Olympus of appearance. Those Greeks were superficial, out of profundity. To put it more bluntly, what you see is what's there. What's there is what matters. How do you apply that to your daily studio practice? The first thing a painter must possess is a built-in, bulletproof shit detector. Good ideas don't necessarily make good paintings. There is too much focus on meaning in contemporary art. People have to know what it means. And the art world has become a ticker tape to satisfy that need. Galleries are lined wall to wall with paintings begging us to figure them out. Museums are brimming with spectacles directed at crowds rather than the individual. The more difficult it is to understand, the more exclusive. However, in our quest to find meaning, we overlook reverie. Why read an art critic describing sweetness when you could bite into a warm, raspberry-filled Krispy Kreme donut? That will tell you everything you need to know about sweetness. Pleasure is itself a form of knowledge. I've been painting for 47 years, and I can tell you that my main goal is simplicity. I don't mean minimalism, but clarity of thought and economy of design. What's the least amount of information my painting can have and still be a painting? The art world clown car wants you to believe that simplicity is the product of a simple mind. Quite the contrary. Simplicity is the outcome of hard work and decades of reduction. As the old saying goes, easy painting makes for hard looking. Easy painting is the kind that does too many things. You know the type. Galleries are full of them. They educate, protest, memorialize, outrage, edify. These are made by painters who were too arrogant or lazy to organize their thoughts into a cogent and accessible vision. The reverse is also true. Hard painting makes for easy looking. In my opinion, Deborah Remington is a good example of hard painting. Because she's already done the heavy lifting for us. In other words, she's spent decades and decades distilling her vision down to a concentrated singularity. She isn't screaming messages in our face, but rather letting the image come to us. An eye not told what to see sees more. Her work is instantly recognizable because her experience isn't like anyone else's. A true artist is those who are most like themselves. The most radical thing you can do is be yourself. James Rosenquist is an example of easy painting that makes for hard looking. In his famous painting, F111, he is doing too many things, which I suppose is the point, to show the fragmentation and overstimulation of contemporary experience. But to my eye, he never rises above a glorified sign painter. It's like a salad bar with a bunch of separate ingredients that never coalesces to become a meal. In other words, there is no transformation. Art is skill and imagination combined to manufacture something that transcends both. To paint, you must forget the name of the thing you're painting. So, do the hard work in your studio so that our work, as the viewer, is easy. There's nothing more deadly dull than wandering through a museum reading wall labels because the artist didn't organize his or her thoughts and emotions. Everything you need to have a complex and enduring relationship should sit on the tip of the brush because there isn't room there for anything else. I start every workday with a single question. What's at stake? In a world where there are so many attention-grabbing issues, why would I paint landscapes in 2023 and risk ridicule and feeling out of touch with fashion? What's at stake? Everything. Yet, I still take it on. I can tell you that you don't get a 4-decade career chasing fashion in an art world where promotion is confused with connoisseurship. You get it by feeding the wild animal that lives in your studio. You get it by showing up every day regardless of the results. The last thing the world needs is another painting of a tree. What it needs is one person's experience warmed up and worn in, so that the viewer doesn't have to figure out what it means in order to have a complex and enduring experience. I love when people say, "Bri, you don't paint realistic landscapes, yet I feel like I've been there before. I recognize it." Art brings us back into ourselves by first making us unrecognizable to ourselves. We stand in someone else's shoes and see through their eyes. That's how culture is manufactured, locally, one story at a time. American scene painters from the 1920s through 50s were guided by what the anthropologist Clifford Geertz referred to as local knowledge, and based much of their philosophy on the belief that to know a city is to know its streets. Painting is local knowledge. Unlike other art forms like dance or theater or music, in which the artist tinkers and edits before the work is presented to the public, a painting contains all of the tattletale evidence of its own creation, eternally in the present tense. I've never painted a tree in my life. My job is not to recreate a previously seen landscape, but to create one whose only purpose is to be seen. Doing that required decades of contemplation and distillation in my secret places of the South Carolina Lowcountry. That's why I draw, because it forces me to slow down and see relationships rather than stuff. My favorite productivity app on my phone is called Airplane Mode. Try it. Drawing exposes a galaxy of small truths that orbit the large one, each worthy of my full consideration. A painting is not just a flat surface, but a conquest of space. How do we conquer space? One way is through conventions like linear perspective, which standardizes the depiction and repetition of figures or objects in space. Another way is through the arrangement of light and dark to suggest mass and volume. A third way is through the modulation of color, bright and dull color, or warm and cool, to suggest elastic, dimensional pictorial space. The key is to make your forms appear as if they occupy the same place, rather than what's called herringbone perspective, when individual forms are staggered in a composition unrelated to one another. To make my forms appear as if they live in the same landscape, I use repeating motifs, jumps of color from one spot to another, and sudden scale shifts from very close up to very far away. Content in my work is a direct function of how near or far away something appears from your face. I declared myself a landscape painter at 10 years old, but knew by the time I was 19 that my conquest of horizontal space would require that I live in a vertical one. Living at the base of New York City skyscrapers oddly brings me closer to nature because I must summon it in my mind. I can plumb the richness of a horizontal tidal marsh more dimensionally in my mind when standing at the base of the 91-story Steinway Tower on 57th Street, because I am forced to look up and down, not side to side. That's how I construct the landscape, in vertical slices rather than horizontal spans. A landscape composed vertically feels unnatural. I am not a nature painter, but an unnature painter. My subject is the landscape, but my content is the sheer joy of wakefulness. People often ask where I go for inspiration as a landscape painter, and the answer, indoors. All painting is studio painting when contemplated. Nature looks best laid out on my studio table. I also think vertically because a vertical orientation is a reflection of the way that we experience paintings in the world. Do you ever wonder why a painting is displayed vertically on a wall as opposed to on a ceiling or on a floor? It's because a wall is perpendicular to the ground, which is a sign of wakefulness. It's an echo of the same upright orientation in which we move through architectural spaces. And therein lies the spinal column of every painting ever made, from Ambrosio Lorenzetti to Norman Lewis to Cornelia Foss. A painting must relate to the body parts of the solitary viewer, with a bottom corresponding to the feet, a midsection, and a top that refers to the area around the head. I align myself with the Romantics, who believed that the purpose of painting nature was to grant us access to a state of mind in which we are acutely aware of the largeness of space and time. Painting is an experimental act which comments on the strangeness of reality. Everything I needed to be a painter I received long ago. Those things must be sustained and permeate everything I do. But first, I must learn to be where I go. I love the outdoors, but didn't become a landscape painter until I came indoors. I get loads of emails every day from people all over the world. And one of the most common questions is, how do I find my style? What is my subject matter? My answer is, stop comparing your insides to other people's outsides. Everything has been done, just not by you. Your material is you. What you're selling is not what you're painting. It's who you are. There is no such thing as a style. There are only your interests. Artists are people who are generous with theirs. I don't have a particular interest in orange peels. However, I love Raphael Peel's peels because of his obsession with painting them. His pleasure becomes my pleasure. The best way to learn about something is by paying attention to people who love it, because they will automatically know more. Start with your interests. I don't mean the boring stuff you say at job interviews, like jogging and traveling, but the stuff you don't admit at parties. Your quirk for quarks, In-N-Out Burger, or your fear of luggage. Or, in the words of Woody Allen, Mozart, James Joyce, and sodomy. I love barbecue, magic, and humidity. Start with what holds meaning for you, not what you think will impress galleries. It might be nursing, surf fishing, cooking, or raising children. There is only one language for all of them: good painting. Morandi wasn't a great still life painter, but a great painter. Bob Thompson wasn't a superb figurative painter, but a superb painter. Painting is a craft that occasionally rises to an art. Painting is learned through imitation. You can't be what you can't see. Pay attention to people who are doing what you want to do. Imitate all you want. Everything you get wrong becomes your style. If you don't have a museum in your town, then go to the public library and look through art history books. Even though reproductions to real paintings is like phone sex to real sex, it's better than nothing. My first teacher was Chapin Memorial Public Library in Myrtle Beach. Through repeated looking, you'll begin to see that paintings which endure share two things: clear intention and purposeful execution. You must have intention. No one ever got to the top of a mountain by accident. They intended to get there. Painting is hard. When people say, "I'm done with my hard career, now I'm going to paint," they are in for a shitstorm. My advice: don't listen to anyone. Don't ask for help. Help hurts. Figure stuff out for yourself. Time, not the market, determines quality.